of the council. Of course, I think it's probably necessary to state that if I were to find favor with this panel, as well as the appointing authority, then obviously to comply with the law, I would, before appointment, relinquish that position. Mr. Chairman, I maybe will pause there in terms of who I am and await further questions from you and the panel.
Just as a follow-up of that introduction,
yes,
it would be nice for you to highlight one or two successes that you had with CIC.
Yes.
And what you think are regrets
yes.
from that stint that you had.
Yes.
That follows us up to now.
Yes.
The laws that you think you ought to have done and you didn't do, and the country may be suffering from that failure or absence of those laws.
Thank you, Chairman. Most of the laws that the Constitution required to be enacted were actually enacted. We worked well with the Attorney General. We worked well with the Kenya Law Reform Commission and the various government departments where the laws originated from. So what I would say, while we wrote most of these laws, I think I can honestly say that there are one or two of them, because of the process where these laws eventually had to pass through cabinet and then be taken to the National Assembly so that they could be enacted. I do have one or two that personally, and I think most of my colleagues felt that collectively, not just CIC, collectively, including those bodies that I have mentioned, we probably fell short of the mark. Examples, for example, the laws to implement Chapter 6 of the Constitution were, in our view, between leaving CIC and the time that they got to Parliament and were enacted in Parliament. In our view, CIC were quite significantly watered down. But then you see it's Parliament that had and still has the constitutional mandate to actually legislate. There are other laws we passed and which faced some resistance and indeed some maybe even up to date, maybe because of a lack of will. The best example I can give, which actually touches on the delivery of IEBC's mandate, would be the campaign finance law, which, of course, initially Parliament suspended its effect. Eventually it was passed. There has been an issue with regulations to give effect to that. I'm still hopeful that whoever goes to the commission at IEBC, because this is an important part of the electoral process, can actually push and negotiate with the executive, with Parliament, with all stakeholders, so that law, so many years down the line, is actually passed, so that the intent of the Constitution is achieved.
So we can blame you for that. Can we also blame you for 2/3 gender rule and referendum laws, their absence?
You can probably ask my colleagues and I to share some blame on, say, like the referendum law. But Chairman and members of the panel, without running away, the laws were not initiated by CIC. The laws were initiated by the executive. So if a law was not initiated by the executive, there's very little that as CIC we could do. What I would more readily accept blame for, and I think it's just a question of benefit of hindsight, there are laws when we look back, including even the Elections Act, but that's just a question of hindsight is always 2020, and one of the unfortunate, regrettable things was that Parliament had the option to extend the life of the Commission, and we even, as commissioners at that time, offered to Parliament that, look, if there's an issue with the commissioners, us, we are ready to, because our term is coming to an end, but we think that you should do one of two things. Either extend the mandate of CIC, which the Constitution gives you the power to do, or if you don't want to extend the mandate of CIC, then identify another body and find a way of giving it a constitutional underpinning. And here we were probably looking at something like the Kenya Law Reform Commission, because it would have been important to have a body that continued to review the laws and look at anything that may have fallen through the process. And as I say, hindsight is always perfect vision. And if that had happened, I dare say that some of the laws now, not just around the elections, but generally, which have issues, those issues would have been probably addressed by now.
Fair enough. My final question on the introduction is this is a very onerous position you're asking for. You resigned from a judicial position that does not have a similar pressure like this. Are we going to have our chairman resign before end of day?
Chair and members of the panel, not at all. Allow me to explain in a couple of minutes why I resigned from the East African Court of Justice. The East African Court of Justice is established as the judicial organ of the East African community. It's an ad hoc court, means it's not full-time, and it operates to a certain calendar. I think it is not unfair for me to say, because I think it's a matter of public notoriety, that the East African community for the last few years has struggled almost to the point of becoming dysfunctional. So that you had a situation where you have an ad hoc court with a calendar, 4 sessions in a year. Each session, as it approaches, is cancelled because there are financial issues within the community. And when this happened for practically the whole of 2023, I said to myself, I'm not being fair to myself. I'm not being fair to the people of East Africa, because all this time, Chair and members of the panel, every month I am earning $2,000 for doing nothing, because it's called the intersessional something that you get paid every month. So I thought long and hard, and I decided that I was not adding value to the people of East Africa by remaining in a court which is hardly operating. So I then took the step of bringing my concerns to the appointing authority, who the President of the Republic of Kenya, and saying, this is not working. I really would appreciate if I can get the opportunity to resign and do other things.
Enough.
And that's why. So the answer to your question is I do not anticipate those sort of problems if you are to give me the chance to be chair of the commission, so the issue wouldn't arise.
So if Parliament doesn't approve budgets that you present, will you be pushed to do?
You see, chairperson, I do not foresee a day when the commission will actually grind to zero, not able to operate at all. What could happen if there are delays or budget cuts and so on is that there are certain parts of the mandate which, but a day, I do not anticipate a day when Parliament will completely, there is no, which is what was happening in Arusha. There is no money, and it wasn't so much about the money. It is a question of what then am I doing here? You see, most of my colleagues, the judges of the East African Court of Justice, are also judges in the national court, their respective national courts. So if you put off the session, it's a bit inconvenient, but they just go on. There is a service they're delivering in the national courts. For those of us who are not engaged at the national level, but just went there on that ad hoc basis, I felt that it was not right to continue, especially, as I say, when you're continuing to earn an intersessional allowance and you're doing nothing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Linda, please. Kindly.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honorable Justice Nyachae, the IEBC Commission constitutes of different professionals from different backgrounds, your background being the legal field. But the Act itself envisages a composition of a commission that has very diverse skills and disciplines. And save for law, which is your professional background, what other skills and disciplines do you bring into this commission as a chairperson?
Thank you. I think I would answer that at two levels. In terms of skills and disciplines, my formal qualification is law. I have taken it upon myself and developed over a period of time. I have developed an interest in governance, and actually I am a student
I never heard the music so.
Myself that I would bring is one an unfailing commitment to the mandate of IEBC, and expect you have made reference to pressures, and expect that, and this may not be too new because we went, especially in the initial stages, with the changes that the 2010 Constitution, which obviously is radical and transformative relative to the previous Constitution. There was also plenty of political pressure from everywhere, at times from Parliament, at times from the executive. I feel that we were able to stay on the straight and narrow. So, speaking for myself, I believe that is an important skill to be able to navigate those pressures while not compromising on what it is that the mandate is. I think I also feel I would bring into the commission people skills, particularly with the commission itself, so that because I visualize on day one you have a commission of 7 people. They may or may not even have ever seen each other. They are from different backgrounds, possibly with different orientations, different personalities. So I would see the role of the chair, one of the most important roles of the chair, which I believe my experience with CIC stands me in good stead, is how do you manage this kind of scenario? People with different orientation, people with different personalities. I feel that mainly because if you ask me about my personality, people have told me this and I believe it to be true. One of the gifts God gave me is to listen. And I think it's very important when you're dealing in that kind of scenario to listen. And that way you are able to manage people a little better. So I would say the people skills, I would say the courage to do that which is right, irrespective. And I have thought about these things. A close friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, a professional colleague, when I told him I am applying for this job, he told me, my brother, are you sure you want to do that? I asked, oh, many people have asked me that question. I said, yes. He told me why. I asked him why. He told me, you know, you should be ready to either lose your life or your integrity. That's exactly the words that he used. I told him, no, I do not intend to lose my life in serving the people of Kenya as chair or commissioner of IEBC. And I have no intention at any point of compromising on integrity. And I think it's defeatist. So to answer your question, I believe I have the courage that I have no illusions about how difficult this job is. But then at the same time, I have no hesitation in believing that I can do it.
That's okay, Justice. I want you to confirm to this panel.
Yes.
If it is true what Dr. Elizabeth Muli says about you.
Yes.
She's one of your referees.
Yes.
That you possess exceptional stakeholder management and conflict resolution skills. Because I did not hear you say that you possess those skills. But she says that in her recommendation letter. Is it true?
It is true. I guess maybe I did not say everything that I would, or maybe I did not put it the way that Dr. Muli has put it in that reference, because we dealt, as I said earlier, we dealt with diverse stakeholders and people who had different interests, and one of the common denominators was that most were resistant to change. But we managed. I mean, when, you know, we were dealing with some institutions that were fairly rigid traditionally, but we felt that the Constitution required certain changes in the law that manages those institutions. We had long negotiations and you know, these are not people you can just talk down to. You have to convince them, persuade them, and by and large, we succeeded. But let me say this. Dr. Muli is overly kind to me, because the truth of the matter is we were able to do that because we worked together as a team. I wouldn't say that happened because, and only because Charles Nyachae had those skills. It happened because we had a team which could work together, which could share how to manage, whether it is conflict or different ideas from stakeholders that we are dealing with. We were able to do that together as a team.
I think that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Chairman.
Thank you. I will invite Karo Kituku to engage you with some questions.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Mr. Nyachae, will allow me to ask like 3 questions or 2 questions. The Constitution at Article 86 contemplates the use of a voting method that is accurate, verifiable, simple, transparent, and accountable. In the 2013 elections, 2017 and 2022, the IBC deployed technology. In your view, does the technology that the IBC deployed meet these constitutional threshold or requirements? Was it verifiable? And you can use examples to explain your answer.
Okay, I would say that this has happened incrementally. And the real 2013 years, but I think the real technology was 2017. My understanding of why the first election in 2017 was annulled was on the question of verifiability. Because the Supreme Court took the view that the technology that was used, and in particular, the uploading of results from the polling station to the National Tallying Center, and now I'm talking about the presidential election, because that's really where the problems that IEBC has been having about elections. That has been the main, the presidential election. And the Supreme Court was quite clear that we cannot verify this which the presiding officer basically was sending a text, their own text. And that's why the Supreme Court required the uploading and the actual transmitting of what is known as Form 34A. That's basically, apart from a few other, maybe, that's, in my understanding, what actually killed that first election. And that being the case, I would say that, and I think the Supreme Court also took the view that 2022 was a significant improvement, and on the what remains to be done, in my view, has more to do not so much with the fact that the election may not be verifiable, but it has more to do with the ordinary Kenyan remaining persuaded that it is verifiable. If you read my application, my letter of application, I used the phrase that where IEBC wants and needs to be is where IEBC, like Caesar's wife, must be above suspicion. Because as long as what is being done leaves any question marks in the electorate, in the people of Kenya, then IEBC has fallen short. I think IEBC, and to this extent, I agree with the Supreme Court. They did, relative to the previous two elections, I think they did a relatively good job. There are, of course, things that the Supreme Court pointed out which could be done better. But all said and done, the elephant in the room is that question of what is it that needs to be done, especially with the use of technology, so that the Kenyan voter, the electorate, the Wanjiko, the Mora, the Amina, actually is persuaded that yes, even if we lost this, we are not quarreling with the electoral management body. The reasons lie elsewhere.
Okay. So just following up on what you're saying, that the technology that the IBC has deployed over the various electoral cycles has been progressive. So apart from the KIMS kit, which is the technology that IBC basically deploys, what other areas can the technology be deployed to enhance the elections management in Kenya?
Again, you allow me to go. Sorry, you allow me to go back to the fundamental question, what I've called the elephant in the room, so that we are looking at the trust deficit that exists between the people of Kenya and the whole system, including IEBC. How do we narrow and possibly even do away with that. So my answer to that question is even around the Kim's kit. If I was or tomorrow I find myself in the boardroom of IEBC with commissioners, I would be saying, what is it that the technology we have, what is it that can additionally be done so that the people of Kenya actually feel that they have no reservations. IBC, I believe there's an ongoing discussion between IBC and, of course, like the National Treasury and those who provide money about whether or not the technology, especially the Kim's kits, whether they're obsolete. IBC takes a position, I believe, that they are now obsolete. So that's an issue that needs to be resolved. I am aware that one of the things because currently, what the Kim's kit does, as I'm sure you members of the panel know, is the starting with the registration of voters, then the registration of candidates, then the identification at the polling station of the voter, and finally, which is the most problematic, the transmission, especially of the presidential result from there. So, and in the process of answering the question, I would want to ask, if I'm in the commission and just sat there, I would want to find out from the technology people, for example, how can technology carry the voter with IEBC from the time they vote up to the time results are announced. For example, the issue of technology keeping the voters, if I vote, for example, if I normally vote at a polling station called Kisi Primary School. When I vote there and leave the station, if at the close of the voting, I got a message that tells me in your polling station, X number of people voted, this is when they have done the counting. These are the results. The ones that are being announced, pinned to the door and transmitted and then physically taken. If that was done, I venture, and technology helped the voter to get that. I venture to suggest that a Kenyan who was so minded could actually do the arithmetic themselves. So by the time IEBC is announcing the result, they are able to, if they are so minded, to do that arithmetic, whether through their political parties or not. So I think what I would be asking, not being a technology person myself, my question will still remain what I would be asking the technology people. What is it additional that we can do the voter to feel that there's nothing going on wrong, there's nothing they've missed? Yeah.
My last question. So the law and there are instances that the technology does fail.
Yes.
It's technology, it can fail. So the law envisages that IBC should contemplate having a complementary system. Two questions. What is this complementary system? And the second question, how would you ensure that that complementary system remains credible, transparent, verifiable, accurate, and accountable?
Okay, the first question.
Put on your mic, Justice.
I'm sorry, Chair. The first question, what is this alternative? This was the subject of litigation. Of course, having another technologically based complementary system may not be such a bright idea because they could both fail. So the complementary system that IEBC is using really now is the physical getting the information. This is at the polling station, getting the information physically from the register. But that it's complementary, but, and this now is to answer your second question, it may not be ideal because you go back to the reason that we went to technology in the first place. So as at now, me, who is not a technology person, I have not yet engaged with an understanding of what a complementary system that does not rely on the register would do.
So maybe to help you, this complementary system can be manual in the sense that the voter identification is manual. It's outside the technology. There is a physical counting, the physical tallying of the Form 34, that for A, that for B, that for C, and the handwritten transmission or the physical transmission of the forms to the National Tallying Center. This is in regard maybe to the presidential. Yeah. So that is maybe what could be manually. So we are asking, given now those steps that are being taken manually without the help of technology, if you become successful and you are the chairperson of the IEBC, how would you ensure that those processes meet the constitutional threshold that is established in Article 86 in regard to the system being verifiable, accurate, accountable, transparent?
Let me say this. I think it would be, in the absence of technology, it becomes more difficult to ensure that it is verifiable. So I think one then would be looking at how do you safeguard, for example, the journey, the physical journey that that Form 34A takes to become 34B and then eventually get to the National Tallying Center. And I also think that participants, not to run away from the responsibility of IEBC to deliver an election that is verifiable, credible, and transparent. The players in the political parties, the candidates, I think need to play a bigger role in terms of protecting that process, and that requires, I think, engagement between IEBC and the stakeholders in coming up with an alternative system, which, as I hear you, would be entirely devoid of technology. which of course means that we're going back to where we started.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We are almost halfway through, so be concise in your responses. I want to invite Dr. Koki to ask some questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Justice Nyachae, you mentioned that you have been in the democratization movement in Kenya, and indeed it is true we have worked together. My question is, one of the issues that has really concerned democracy, has hampered democracy in Kenya, is and has contributed to divisive politics, is a system of first past the post, or what we have in Kenya, that leads to results that the winning candidate takes all, where the winner takes all. And one of the concerns that, of course, there are many ideas that have been advanced on how to improve the democracy and the electoral landscape by introducing different types of electoral systems. For example, mixed member proportional representation, etc., which addresses some of these divisive elections. Why do you think that has not succeeded in Kenya, and you have been involved in this process for that long? That's the first question.
My own view is that I think there are probably several reasons which pertain to our type of politics, which sadly is not always issue-based. And that's why even political parties, to actually achieve issue-based political parties has been a challenge. And that's why, for example, proportional representation may not work, because you have a mindset that we want our own representative in this particular locality or in this particular community, who we see as our representative. It's not about issues. That, I think, is a reality. But let me say this. Those who, in the democratization process, as you will recall, Dr. Muli, we tended to deal with much more basic things, and we really didn't get at that time to the stage where we are looking at, for example, alternative kinds of elections. I always ask, whenever I hear that argument, I always ask myself, why does first past the post work in very many other systems, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge in Kenya. The people of Kenya, I think, promulgated a constitution as they saw fit, how they wanted to be governed, and perhaps and our politics tends to revolve around individuals. Perhaps a solution would be to have a system where, yes, first past the post, for example, if you're talking about a presidential election, but then you have individuals who have huge followings, and when they lose an election, whichever way they lose an election, their followers just feel, then we are done for. If our person did not get it, then we are done for. So to me, not being pessimistic, but I wouldn't start with trying to change the system so that we have, say, proportional representation, which I personally favor. I would begin it from the pragmatic perspective of, is there a way that we can ensure that participants in an election at the end of that process are not feeling excluded from the body politic?
Thank you. Justice Nyachae, perhaps you can share with the panel some ideas on how we can address this issue in Kenya, this perennial problem of divisive politics, and you know, when at the end of election results where they are not being accepted, and after elections we have those members, you're saying the followers of the losing candidate, the first runners-up, has a lot of votes that have just gone to waste.
Yes.
How do we address that so that we can make Kenyans appreciate and accept the results of the elections?
I think the first thing I would say, Dr. Muli, is that what we were discussing a minute ago, where we want to get to a situation where the people of Kenya have faith in the system, and to the extent that they are more likely to accept the result. I don't want to speak too much, the chair warned me, but let me just give a quick example. I'm not a great football fan, chair, but in 2014, by God's grace, I got an opportunity to go and watch the World Cup final in Rio, in Brazil. You know, thousands of people in that stadium, and everybody with very strong views in terms of who they are supporting. At the end of the match, you just had two reactions. Those who won were jubilant. Those who lost left there feeling dejected. But what you didn't have is a scenario of those who lost saying, no, there was something not right here. Of course, there are things like, I forget what they call it, where nowadays there's technology assists to follow some of those things. But the important thing is, how do you, in answer to Dr. Muli's question, how do we get to a situation, and that's the first part, a situation where people have faith in that system. So if they lose, they're just dejected, but they don't cry foul. The second team, the second side of it, I think if we accept as a people that we have this problem that is perennial, where we have difficulties in accepting the results and so on, because of what the consequences are. Because the consequences is that a leader and his or her people feel, oh, if once we are lost, then we are done. We have nothing out of it. Is perhaps to relook at the structure of government so that in the body politic, those who have not won at all levels to be able to form government feel that they're still participating in the body politics. Those are the two suggestions that I would make.
Thank you very much, Justice Nyachae. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I presume that in Brazil there was confidence in the referee.
Chair, there must have been, because I didn't see anybody shouting referee Akwende or things like those. I just saw people jubilating in that particular match. Germany won. I saw people, those who supporting Germany jubilating. The other side, Argentina lost, the crying. But it's just the way you accept that we lost. But nobody Nobody challenged the system of how the result was arrived at. That's my point, Chair.
Okay, then we will ask you further questions, since you will be the referee if you get this job.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again, Justice Nyachae. You are the chair of CIC, which I'm looking at the Constitution here. You are to monitor, facilitate, and oversee the development of legislation and administration procedures required to implement this Constitution. Now, I believe you are part of the Chapter 15, the operationalization of the Chapter 15 commissions, for which CIC was one of them, and particularly IEBC is one of the Chapter 15 commissions. However, in the recent past, in 2014, there was the Senate actually raised concern with regard to conflicts between the Commission or within the Commission. And I think this one was specifically to National Gender and Equality Commission. Equally, in 2015, there was an issue at Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which is also a Chapter 15 commission. And even it went to court. There were investigations that were done. At some point, they were nullified on the basis that there were no commissioners at EACC. We've seen what has been happening at IEBC. 2017, we saw how the former chair, the CEO, how some commissioners left, resigned. And coming home to the IEBC Act, I was just looking at it, and we've had 10 amendments up to last year. The one that created this selection panel was actually the 10th amendment of the IEBC Act. So looking at the governance framework of these constitutional commissions and the conflicts that we've seen running across, is there a problem with regard to the governance framework of our constitutional commissions? And is it a constitutional issue? Is it a legal issue? Or it's more of a governance issue? Thank you.
My answer to that would be it's none of the above. The biggest problem is the dynamics of personalities and what is perceived as power play. The one you didn't mention was between the National Land Commission and the Ministry of Lands. I honestly, obviously, like I said earlier on, hindsight is always 2020. There must have been a few things here that when you look back, you say, this we could improve on and this we could improve on. But the basic framework for each of those constitutional commissions, I would still stand by the laws that were put in place. The problem, if we are to be honest with ourselves, is personalities, the dynamics of power play, resistance to change. Classic example would be the conflicts that were there between the National Police Service Commission and the National Police Service itself, the Inspector General and his team. I still don't think the problem was either with the Constitution or with either with the Constitution or the laws made to implement the Constitution. I think it has more to do with a situation where one side or other is resisting change. You know, we must not forget at any point that the 2010 Constitution was and remains a radical document, a transformative document, relative to where we were before. So when you tell a senior police officer, take the IG, and I mean, it's just an example, I'm not accusing the IG of anything, that you were able to do this previously, but now under the constitutional dispensation that we now have, this can only be done this way, or this can be done by another body like the commission. Even when we were writing the KDF Act, for example, it took a lot of energy, particularly by Dr. Muli, Elizabeth Muli, who was in charge of that particular thematic group. It took a lot of energy, negotiation, for the military to understand a concept called civilian oversight, which is in the Constitution. They're not used to it. To their credit, eventually they were able to internalize it. To me, the problem we have been having with the constitutional commissions is not about the Constitution, is not about the laws to implement the Constitution. It's about the power play and resistance to change.
Further to that, the IEBC Act, which if you are successful, you will be responsible for its implementation, was actually amended in 2016. And it is the only one under Chapter 15 commissions that has separated the functions of the commissioners and the secretariat, unlike all the other Chapter 15. This one under Section 11A has went ahead to separate it. So given your experience and the fact that you've said it's not about the law, it's not about the Constitution, it's about power play, so how will you, if appointed, handle these challenges that have been default to IEBC for the last 10 or so years?
Sorry, which particular one? Which particular challenge?
You see, Section 11,
yes.
2A.
Sets out the...
It is the only
yes.
of all the Chapter 15
yes.
where it has clearly separated the roles
yes.
of the Commission and
yes.
of the Secretariat,
yes.
unlike any other Chapter 15.
Yes.
So, given the fact that you've said this is about power play, it's not an issue of law.
Yeah.
So, assuming you, and if you get this position,
yes.
as the chair of IEBC, how will you ensure that these conflicts, perennial conflicts that have been there at IEBC, which are more of power play, not the law, how will you address them as once appointed? Okay.
I think there are two different levels of conflict. The one that we were talking about in the earlier question is about the commission as an entity and maybe another entity like part of the executive which was dealing with particular issues beforehand. Now you're asking me about within the commission. And if you're asking me about IEBC, if I was privileged to serve as chair of IEBC, I would consider myself lucky, more lucky than the other constitutional commission heads, for the simple reason that I accept that amendment 11A is a very helpful and useful amendment, because you don't then have to have any tug of war about who does what. The bigger problem has been, in my view, with the other external entities. But let me come to IEBC. You know what? Honestly, I think the solution to IEBC, 11A is very good. It helps. But 11A will not solve the problem if the mindset of the respective players, like the commissioners and the secretariat, are mentally operating from different perspectives. That amendment is 2016. Yeah. Now, if we just look at the commission, it didn't help in 2022 at Bombers. It was there. You still had this rupture which nobody understands. Yeah. but which for me I attribute to more, not about the structure, I attributed more to a problem of personalities and a problem of interests, and again, power play. So the law there, which is very good, Section 11A of the Act is very good. It sets out all this, yeah? But we still have a challenge. Even when I read the Supreme Court judgment for 22, which endeavored to advise the issue of the relationship between the chairperson and the commissioners relative to the chairperson constitutionally being the returning officer for the presidential election. I am persuaded that even with that guidance from the Supreme Court, if the mindset of the people within that commission is wrong or is negative, you will still have it. So maybe I'm going further than the question you asked me, but if I was to find favor in the position that I have applied for, and I was find myself as chair of the commission, I would consider one of my most urgent and major tasks is how to make 7 people every person has come from wherever they have come from, how to turn that into a team which focuses on what the mandate is and how each of them individually can deliver for a collective discharge of the mandate. And for me, as an individual, I consider that my experience at CIC would come stand me in good stead.
Thank you very much. I'll ask Misati Evans to take up some questions.
Thanks so much. Let me call you Charles. That's what I'm used to calling you. Now, from what you have just answered, it will be clear that the issue of personality and the institutional infrastructure is not a problem. Then in your own view, what do you think brings these conflicts as the state currently as it is? Why are we having problems? Because from your presentation, or the way you have answered is like the personality issue and the infrastructure is okay.
What I think causes the problem is you have a situation, and again, allow me to refer back to the experience I had at CIC. Remember, CIC was the commission was created by a process which involved the two disparate political groups that had formed the coalition government. If we are to be honest with ourselves, what that meant is that people came there probably from the perspective of a political I have come here by virtue of political coalition X, and I have come here by virtue of political coalition Y. So, from the onset, there was potential for distrust. There was potential for suspicion. So, I think there was a need, and I think we succeeded, for the commission to do what needed to do, whether it is bonding, whether it is spending time together, whether it is reassuring each other, whether it is trying to understand each other, whatever it is, so that when we had disagreements in the boardroom, and there were many, there were disagreements arising from issues that different members had different perspectives. And that way, at least for me as chair, it made my life easier. There are many times we fought very hard in the boardroom, but we arrived at a decision because of that goodwill. And then when we walked out of the boardroom, we presented a position that we all accepted. The challenge, therefore, is how do you overcome, and they're quite natural, the prejudices people have, the suspicions that people come with, and possibly people have different, I hope not, different agenda, but those are the challenges that you know have to be overcome, so that the commission, you don't have the kind of rupture that you had at Bomas in 2022.
Thanks. As a follow-up question to that, the work of the Secretariat being more of operational, but you realize that the Commission is the one which owns up the results of the operations. How will you ensure that you own whatever activities, whatever mission, and whatever activities they do, that you are in charge and you own it? And then the last question, do you think the issue of procurement has any bearing towards the conflicts that happens in IEBC?
And I can honestly say I am not sure, but I have had that said. That's my honest answer. That sometimes there are interests other than the delivery of the mandate. There's a school of thought, for example, that when you had a commission which came in when other commissioners had been there, perhaps there was a feeling that when we were not here, what happened that we missed out on. I think that is the honest truth, but I don't know. Honestly, I can. But having. Sorry, what was the other than procurement?
You own the actions of the operations.
Yes. So. I think it's a matter of working relationships. And I go back to the whole question of what happened at Bomas in 2022, and we can't run away from it. I mean, it was the low point of the Electoral Commission. When you think about it, the actual physical verification that happens at the National Tallying Center is actually done by the Secretariat under the supervision of the Commission. So really, because it's done by the Secretariat under the supervision of the Commission, you would expect that you wouldn't have that kind of scenario, because the Secretariat, which has been doing the tallying under that supervision, and it's mathematical. We have verified. It may be laborious. It may take time, but it should be purely mathematical. Especially when we remember, it's just verification between from 34A that was transmitted and from 34A that arrived at Bomas. So, when the returning officer, take my constituency again as an example, when the returning officer from Nyachae constituency arrives with his 34B with the attachments of 34A, All that the commission is required to do is to verify that what he has brought, yeah, is consistent with what was uploaded and sent to the national tallying. To do is to verify that what he has brought, yeah, is consistent with what was uploaded and sent to the National Tallying Center. Because in the minor KI case and subsequently, the courts have said what was announced by the presiding officer at Kisii Primary School cannot even be changed by the chairman of the commission or chairperson of the commission. So when you think about it, the tallying exercise should be an exercise really that is basically mathematical. Because once you tally that, what happened at the Kisii Primary School with what was uploaded and sent to the National Tallying Center, multiply that by, is it 47,000 polling stations, it's purely mathematical. So, ideally, that problem that arose in Bomas shouldn't have arisen. I am persuaded that what happened in Bomas had more to do with the personality differences. I wouldn't want to guess what caused the personality differences or whatever, but it had less to do with that mathematical process that is the tallying at Bomas.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Chair. Over to you.
I'd like to ask Madam Fatuma to bring in her interventions, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Nyachae, you okay with that? Okay.
As I said, they're all my names. You had Mr. Mr. call me Charles. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. In the next election, the youth are going to be the highest percentage. However, they face barriers like disillusionment, apathy. So if you become chair, how would you meaningfully engage them in the electoral processes so that they're able to take care of their political and civil rights?
I think that the answer to that is at several levels. At the most intimate level, of course, if the commission is in place and, for example, starts continuous registration of voters, the chances are that the 500,000 or so people who are going to be employed to do that are going to be young people. That's at one level where they will feel engaged. But in terms of the process itself, because IEBC is required to deliver on a credible election, and that is reflected in its vision and its mission. Then, if you take the cycle, the electoral cycle, the young people will want to be part of the process right from the stage of registration of them now being forget about them working for IEBC to register voters, but them now making it easy for them to register. This requires voter education, because in the process of voter education, all stakeholders, including IEBC, must dispel from the notion, from young people and Kenyans generally, the notion that the election is about other people, not about them. And I think the commission through voter education can go a long way in making them feel part of the process. It is not the commission's responsibility, for example, to deal with identity cards, but the commission, as an entity that deals with elections, if I was chair, I would be talking to the executive about how we can help young people to have IDs. And there are many challenges. There are many challenges. Some of them on day one, whoever goes to that commission, and they're going to involve young people. Take the by-elections, for example, that are pending. If you take a constituency like Banisa, I think 2 years they have not had representation. In those 2 years, there must be a lot of young people who have come of age, maybe have IDs, and they want to vote. The law requires that you stop registration of voters. Is it 60 days? 60 days before the date of the by-election. So, in where there is an urgency in having that by-election, these young people are going to feel disenfranchised. That's just one example. Now, at a national level, there is an obligation on all stakeholders to ensure, right from them being enabled to get identity cards, which, as I say, is not part of IEBC's mandate, so they get identity cards. IEBC must facilitate them to register as voters. And very importantly, in terms of civic education, and voter education, and the wider civic education anyway, which as a country maybe we haven't done very well, there is a need for all of us to work together to ensure that the youth in this country feel that they matter. That is stakeholder engagement.
So would you think of, I like the part you talked about the obligation of creating awareness on obligations of stakeholders. So would there be specific programs targeting the youth on this?
Yes, I would, after receiving advice on how we could do this, and especially what are the financial implications, if I was chair, I would put a high premium on inclusivity for young people, so that they feel this process, they are part of it, they are an integral part of it. As you said when you were asking the question, they even are the larger percentage of the people that citizens that are eligible to vote. So I would look to the National Treasury to specifically provide funds to enhance, especially voter education, and in that particular section of stakeholders, and engage them as widely as we can in that, and continuously in that period before the elections, and continue. I think, looking at the wider issue, I think one of the challenges IEBC seems to have is that, especially in terms of funding, the focus only seems to be as you approach elections. And yet things like voter education, registration and so on and so forth are things really which should be completely around the electoral cycle. And I would want, if I was chair, I would want, as a matter of policy, to engage commissioners so that we collectively engage those who provide funding so that there is a specific target of young people.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Bore Nicodemus. I'll ask you.
Thank you, Chairman, and Charles, for being able to take us through and answering these questions. And I'd like to, looking at your track record and having worked as a CIC chairperson, I'm sure you experienced cartels who wanted the status quo remain and engaging you with your pet subject of football. We have seen referees ending the game while they are halfway going home because they are aware that when they end the game in the middle of the field, they will face a Herculean task of explaining to the people why they have lost the game. Now, we are looking at IEBC and looking at the budgets that they have presented. Some people look at the budget in terms of how they might be able to gain from it. When they talk about the 63 billion shillings that they have asked from Treasury, some people look at how much they can gain from it. And you are applying to be the chairperson of such a commission, which has a lot of interests that are not only political, but also financial. So how would you be able to manage the interests of the country, to balance the interests of the country, at the same time getting rid of the cartels that may be a part of the problems of the internal conflicts within IEBC?
Thank you, Mr. Bore. Let me say, first of all, at CIC, this is not a problem that I experienced. I never, at any level, maybe because there wasn't the kind of budget that is at IEBC. So that I never encountered any cartel in relation to the problems we encountered at CIC had more to do with political resistance to change. That was and it was at all levels, whether you're talking of parliament, whether you're talking of the executive. But at CIC, I didn't. I did not experience that at all. I can visualize, with the kind of budget that IBC has, I can visualize how that would be a challenge. I would see my job, if I got to be chair, my job and that of the commission, we are required to provide policy, to oversight the Secretariat as they implement that policy, and to ensure, ethical practice within the commission. So, for me, that would be the guiding, focus. That everything be done in accordance with the policy that has been adopted. Everything be done ethically, and the commission to ensure that they discharge the mandate of oversighting. But I think that it's one of those areas that if the commission are all of the mindset, yeah, then I think the commission should be able to resist any untoward attempts by what you have described possibly as cartels. But I can visualize that kind of figure probably has people salivating around the country just because of the figure.
As a follow-up question, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind in terms of ethics and trust and constitutional governance in Kenya? if you are given the chance to become the chair of IEBC?
Thank you, sir. Given the history of this commission, especially in the last three elections, like I said earlier, there are many people, well-minded people, who think it's a very brave thing to go to IEBC. And therein lies the challenge. So what I would want with a good team, if I got this position, with a good team of commissioners, the legacy I would want us to leave is a legacy that this is the commission which was able, because as I said earlier, the biggest challenge we have as far as IEBC and the people of Kenya is concerned is there's a huge trust deficit. The commission that comes in after you've done your work will conduct, because of the 6 years, will conduct one election. So they have one bullet. And the one bullet is to reverse that situation of the trust deficit. So for me, alongside anything else and everything else that the commission will be doing from day one, is what is geared towards reducing that trust deficit. I'm an old-fashioned, or shall I say an old-school lawyer. So for me, the Supreme Court of Kenya tells me the 2022 election met the minimum standards contemplated by the Constitution. I accept that because that's me as an old-school lawyer. But that's not good enough for the people of Kenya. Beyond what the Supreme Court said, the people of Kenya themselves must feel like the losing side in Rio in the football match. They must feel that, yeah, we lost, but that's the way it goes. We can't all win, but we have nothing negative to say about the Electoral Management Board. So what would I like to be remembered? I would like to be remembered, and you can't do this alone. It can only be part of a team. I would like to be remembered as part of a team, and if I was given the opportunity to serve as chair, I would like to be remembered as the chair who was able to completely reduce the gap of the trust deficit between the people of Kenya and the electoral management body in election issues. That's how I would like to be remembered.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll ask Professor Adams. Please, Professor Law.
Thank you, Chair. You've had all the salutations you asked for. Mr. Justice, Charles, Nyachae. But my colleagues have not called you by the name which I'm sure you are given traditionally. So I'll address you as Ayako.
Thank you, sir. Very good name.
Very good name, I believe so. I've heard you. I've looked at your CV. And your big ticket to shoe in into this position of Chair IEBC, if I hear you correctly, is your experience in CIC. Because other than the introduction, IED, you packed it. You are chair there. ICJ, you packed it. It has just been CIC, and I see where you are coming from. And that's where my first question comes in. Another consistent parallel to your CIC experience has been the liner, resistance to change. And at the end, when Bore was questioning you, you said both the executive and Parliament. If I may ask, why does Ayako now feel that when it becomes chair of IEBC, that resistance will disappear and he and his team will lower the trust deficit? What will happen that hasn't been there in this resistance to change?
Let me say this. When I talk about the resistance to change at CIC, effectively what I am saying is I expect all levels of resistance even at IBC, probably because the stakes are higher. At CIC, I wouldn't say that we failed to overcome. I think we went a long way for lack of a better word, in plowing through that resistance. We didn't always succeed. And that's why I gave some examples of what I consider to, especially in terms of legislation like the Ethics and Integrity Act. I felt we tried, but it was viciously, for lack of a better word, watered down. But we live to fight another day, and you know, even at IEBC, one expects resistance. It's not that I expect that you'll walk into IEBC and everybody will clap for you and say, this is what we want to do. But what I'm saying, Prof, if the focus is on reducing, if not completely obliterating that trust deficit, and you start from day one, then you're not even looking at just you as individuals. You're looking, how can technology help us to do this? How can we improve the policies? Can we address, for example, the question, I don't know if it was Dr. Muli or somebody who asked about the complementary system. With the focus on trying. It's not something that I am naive enough to think that can be achieved overnight. But I was answering the question from Mr. Bore, what would I like to be remembered as? That's why I keep saying, even if it's not completely obliterated, because that may not be easy, if it is reduced, as opposed to getting worse, then I will feel I am happy to be remembered that way.
Thank you very much. My other question is that, again, I believe that for IEBC, most of the time, for Kenyans, it is which side of the political divide are you in? And there are those who have time and again become pessimistic that prefix independent should be removed from IEBC because it's never independent. The law that is guiding us in this election panel is very clear on who is qualified or not qualified to run. And I just want to use the analogy that you gave us of the World Cup. And now I won't mention teams because Kenyans are very passionate about the Premier League. But there are usually some referees that you'll just see trending that they are favoring one side. And my question is that if you were to succeed as chair, what's your understanding of independence and impartiality given that you and other chairs before have been politically affiliated. It's not a secret. As you walk in and wear in a football match the black or whatever color, and you have that firimbi, and you have the yellow card and the red card, what changes when you walk in there as now the referee of the game? Associate with that, because I won't want to ask another question separately, that we know that sometime, I can't remember which year, but 4 commissioners out of the blue resigned and really put the country in a quagmire over quorum issues and so on. And you, in your own statement, which the chair has followed, has told us that you did quit the ESCJ. In fact, you went ahead to say you were earning $2,000 for a job you felt you are not doing. I don't want to ask that, have you been replaced and is that new person earning money for no reason? I don't want to go there. I want to stick to your quitting. Given that those 4 commissioners quit and put the country in the tenterhooks of what finally happened, Kenyans watching will be asking, Charles Nyachae did quit once. Will he quit again? Especially in this high-pressure job. What assurance do you give them that that will not happen?
Thank
Please
you.
take maximum of 4 minutes.
Okay. The answer is no. I will not quit because I do not anticipate a situation at IEBC that the job for which I have been recruited, if I become chair, that I simply don't have anything to do, and therefore there's no point in me going to the office. I don't anticipate that. I have endeavored to explain what happened in the ESCJ. At IEBC, the one thing that will not make me quit is any kind of pressure. Because this is something I have given thought to. I mean, I am not applying for this job thinking it's going to be a bed of roses. So pressure will not be the reason that I will quit. And because I do not see a scenario where I have no work to do, I will not quit, because that work could be actually, if it's a question, for example, of trying to get resources to do A, B, C, D, that in itself is significant work to do. So the question of quitting, if I got the position, doesn't arise. Now, you made reference to political affiliations. I think your average Kenyan, at some point, probably has some kind of political affiliation. My mind is very clear that notwithstanding any political affiliation I may have had at any point in my public life, if I got this opportunity and I accepted this job, I will only be guided by the Constitution of Kenya, the laws, and of course, if I get the opportunity, I will be taking an office, an oath of office. So I am able to look the people of Kenya in the eye collectively and tell them that in that situation, I would have every intention of living by that oath of office. Daktari, and allow me to say this just as an example. The way the IEBC Act is designed, several of the honorable members around the table come here by virtue of political parties. But as I sit here as a candidate, I don't have the slightest doubt that every member in this panel is going to do their job impartially and focus on what they believe is the best result. I have no qualms whatsoever. I cannot say that so-and-so maybe at some point was a member of this party, that and the other. And I think we have the capacity to rise above that at different times. And I can look the people of Kenya in the eye and say, yes, I would be able to do the job impartially.
So you are a real footballer. You have returned the ball into his court. But I want to ask you, Prof, to shoot your 2 high school questions.
The chairman has asked me to shoot my high school question. You are in ESCJ, which means you are in the body organogram of the East African community. The ESC Treaty envisages 4 stages. How many are already in place, and which ones are in place, and which ones are not yet in place?
If you are to ask, different people have different thinking on this, but if you are to ask me, I would say that what is in place, to a certain extent, not fully, is basically the common market. That's actually the one that I would be comfortable to say is in place. The others, I would have reservations to say that they're in place. Yeah.
My second question that Chair calls high school question is that the Electoral Commission of Kenya has promulgated at the Lancaster negotiation for the Independence Constitution, ran the 1963 election, then amendments to the Constitution literally buried it until the return of multipartism, when ECK was again reenacted into the Constitution. Which body, which office ran the elections from 1969 to 1988?
There was an office called the Supervisor of Elections. In practice, the elections were run by the then provincial administration. Yeah, I think basically that's the answer I would give. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Tanui?
Mine is a quick one. Justice retired Chairman Emeritus, if I may use those terms. What would you tell Kenyans who are saying that you've served this country as a judge of the East African Court? You've also served Kenyans as chairperson of CIC, and now you should allow other Kenyans to serve as chair IEBC. What can you tell them?
Yes, I would tell Kenyans, essentially I am not before this panel from the perspective of looking for a job, so that one can say, wachia wengine na wao wafanye kazi. Of course it's a job, but, and I reflected long and hard. And I imagine if I was looking for a job, I would probably still, even at my age, get a less dramatic job. The reason that I am offering myself is because, one, I remain passionate about the Constitution of Kenya 2010. I believe that the electoral process is really the backbone of the democratic architecture that the people of Kenya envisaged in that Constitution. I believe that I have something to offer to the people of Kenya in this regard, arising from my training, arising from my experience, and arising to my passion about the Constitution. I would not be as arrogant as to imagine that I'm the only one who can do this job. No, I'm just telling the panel and the appointing authority, I'm available. I believe I can do the job. I would be committed if I got the opportunity. So I'm not really, I would want to tell the people of Kenya that I'm not really trying to squeeze into a job which other people can do. Of course, there are many Kenyans who can do the job. But I'm just saying, I believe I can do the job and I am available. That's basically what I'm saying.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Justice. We are required as a panel to receive memorandum from citizens of this country.
Yes.
And as such, put such a memoranda to you, and we have brought that to your attention. One by Bunge la Wananchi and a sworn affidavit by John and a few others that has been put to you. And they allege the following: that you failed Chapter 6 integrity test due to scandals including extramarital affairs and child support lawsuits that you have faced before. Number 2, financial impropriety. They allege that you're linked to Procter and Allen, a cereals company in financial distress that has defaulted 3.7 billion loan, raising doubts about your financial management capacity. Number 3, that you, Chair, lack a public record, and they allege that to implement key electoral reforms, you failed to do this as a chair of CIC, and in coming into office as a chair of IEBC, there will be nothing new that you'll add. Number 4, they say that there's some conflict of interest, that perhaps you have some political patronage that bring in lack of integrity, and you may not be objective in a presidential election. Then they finally, that you lack public trust due to these past controversies, including personal scandals and questionable appointments and financial disputes. What do you have in terms of response? Briefly, kindly.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm happy to respond to those. I did get the memorandum and I looked at it. Of course, this is a public process, and it's right of every Kenyan to make allegations. One would expect that any serious allegations would have some support. Now, when I go through this, the first one of personal morals and integrity are just allegations and some. I saw a page from some newspaper, and that's all that it is, allegations. Whatever they talk about, they have really not given any substance, and I do not accept the allegations, and I think that's really, on that one, that's what I would say about it. The second one, and I think Procter & Allen, I have never had anything to do with the management of that company. I am a very small shareholder in an investment company which itself has shares in Procter & Allen. I have no direct links with Procter & Allen. So I don't know how I would answer that, because if you're talking about financial management, I've never been involved in the financial management of Procter & Allen. So I really don't know how that would be said to reflect financial impropriety. The allegation that I failed at CIC, I think it's insulting not so much to myself because I'm a candidate here and they're welcome to say what they wish to say about me. I think it's insulting to the people I worked with at CIC, the entire team, and all the other stakeholders to say that we did nothing and achieved nothing at CIC. I think the work that CIC did is self-evident. So I think this is just an allegation, like all the others, meant to scandalize. Political patronage. I'm not sure which you referred to because I saw two things. One, a statement about the manner in which I was appointed to the East African Court of Justice. To the best of my knowledge, that's the way the treaty has no details, and that's the way the manner I was appointed is the way all judges are appointed through their respective heads of state who sit in the summit, which is the appointing authority. The head of state nominates. And so unless the treaty is changed, I really don't think, and unless every other person who has been appointed from Kenya to the East African Court of Justice has gone there by virtue of political patronage, which I think there is no evidence to that. Again, I think this is purely scandalous. The other thing, there was an allegation of me being related to somebody who they seem to know that is going to be a presidential candidate. Something I don't know anything about. The person they mentioned is not my relative, so I really don't know how I would respond to it. Again, I think it's purely scandalous. I'm very clear in my mind that none of those allegations have any basis whatsoever. And really, Chair, unless members of the panel wish to ask me specific follow-up questions on that, which I will be happy to answer, I consider the entire memorandum as being motivated by ill will for reasons that I don't know, and not being supported by the truth. But if members have anything specific they wish to ask, I have no problem.
Any knowledge of you being a state candidate?
A state candidate for this job? No. I'm not sure what a state candidate is, but I made this decision to run. You know, Mr. Chairman, when somebody talks about a state candidate, they are actually insulting this panel. You're the people who are going to decide who among the people that you have interviewed you are going to recommend to the appointing authority. So the idea of a state candidate is foreign to me.
Your last question.
Thank you, Chairman. Justice Nyachae, there have been allegations by Bunge la Wananchi.
Yes.
In a memorandum that I'm certain that you have seen.
Yes.
Facts which have been disclosed to you earlier, that there was misappropriation while you were at CIC in the year 2015, that the Auditor General's report revealed that at that time, the Commission spent an excess of expenditure of 43 million in a budget of 306 million, which had been approved. that at the time you ended up spending about 349.8 million. Even though largely the amount was accounted for, they say that the 9.2 million was fraudulently paid for the supply of newspapers, a matter which they say to have been subject of criminal investigations. What is your response to these allegations that this panel has received in a form of a memorandum?
Sorry, I'm hearing this for the first time. Was that memorandum sent to me?
I think so, it was.
Separately from the earlier one?
It must have been in the same package.
Oh, I didn't see that one. And my answer is very simple. I know absolutely nothing about that allegation. I was not involved at CIC in anything to do with the financial processes or practice at the Commission. I'm also not aware of it, but in any event, I was not, I would have wanted to know if there were criminal proceedings, who are they against and what was the outcome. I really don't know anything about it.
That is self-explanatory, how you have explained, and I think it is sufficient for the purposes of this interview. We just want accountability in terms of the memorandum that we have received.
No, that's...
And of course, a fair defense for yourself.
Absolutely.
Which we are grateful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, tell me.
Maybe, Chair, to also help us, were you the accounting officer of CIC?
Not at all. Not at all.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah.
I think that's enough.
Okay.
Finally, you may not have seen this memorandum, but we have received it this afternoon saying that you are a state officer. Are you a state officer?
I chair the council of the Kenya School of Government. I'm not sure that that certainly makes me a public officer. I'm not sure it makes me a state officer.
Okay. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
That's enough. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's taken us long. We have taken almost about 10 minutes above the time we should have taken with you. But thank you for indulging us into your life and your career. Do you have any question for us?
Does it have to be a question or I can make a comment?
You can make a comment.
My comment is to really appreciate the opportunity to interview before yourselves, to wish you well in the process, because you are doing an important public duty, whatever you decide. And to say that for me, the most important thing is that from whichever corner I may be, I remain passionate about the issues that we have been discussing. If I get the opportunity, I will endeavor to do my best. If I don't get the opportunity, I will continue to support the country as it strives to achieve the issues that we have been discussing on IEBC to deliver its mandate from whatever corner. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your time and the sacrifice you have made to spend your afternoon with us. We wish you well in this pursuit. There's a bottle of water there. Please do remember to pick your certificates. Asante sana. Thank you. That's yours. It's okay. Wow. Okay. Media, do we ask you again to give us some space kindly, turn off your gadgets, and just allow us to be able to finish up with this candidate. Thank you very much.